Hello my beautiful bookish friends, I'm Bowen and welcome to my October wrap up. I have two vlogs for the month of October. I have my witchy reading vlog and my dark romance reading vlog. So if you've not seen those, I'll link those in the description down below. But in total, I read 16 books in the month of October. So let's get into all of the books I read during the spooky season. The first two books I'm going to talk about are from a series. So I read book 1, which is The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels, and I also read book 2, The League of Gentlewomen Witches. Both of them are by India Holton. I gave this one 3 stars and I gave this one 2.5. I also gave both of these books a 1 spice rating. I feel like these books are mostly plot more than the romance, and I was really hoping for the romance more than the plot in this one. But the one thing that I just couldn't get past was the writing style. It's not bad, it just really didn't work for me personally. The humour was very dry sort of humour and all of the jokes just seemed to fall really flat. The houses were flying for whatever reason. I didn't really get how the magic system worked, but just I found that these books were just not for me. I think someone else would really love them, but it just wasn't my thing. The next book is The Cock Down the Block by Amy Ward. I gave this one a 3.5 stars and a 2 spice rating. You know how sometimes when you pick up a book, you don't necessarily want it to be a 5-star? You're just looking for something that's between like 3 and 4 star range, something where you don't have to think about it too hard. It's just going to be a fun, easygoing, good time. It's not going to give you a lot of emotions. It's just going to calm down all those like very loud thoughts inside your head. That's this book. In this book we have Chris, who is the athlete in the town, and he is living next door to his best friend Trixie, who is a plus size girl, and he has had a crush on her literally forever. He even asked her out once, but she turned him down, which she has absolutely no recollection of, which that part kind of bothered me. But I really liked this. This was just sweet and fun, and it's like a little bit fake dating, and I had a really good time with this. It wasn't anything groundbreaking, but it was really good for what it was, and I really enjoyed it. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. I gave this book a 3.5 as well, and I gave it a 1 spice rating. I read the first book in this series, The Ex-Hex, a couple of years ago, and I preferred the plot in that one to the romance, and in this one I preferred the romance to the plot, and I actually prefer this one, I think. Now, Erin Sterling does vibes immaculately. This has the perfect autumn mood, and I love that for this, but there's just a few elements like the plot, like the ending, that just didn't quite work for me. I love their romance, but there's just a little something missing from it that just didn't work. The next book I picked up was Hex Appeal by Kate Johnson. I gave this a 2.25 and a 1 spice rating. This book I just couldn't get into. I didn't really care about the characters or the plot or literally anything that happened in this. The one thing in this that I did appreciate though is the trauma of our main male character Josh. Now, the trauma that he experienced before the book takes place and it is touched upon, so if you want to check the trigger warnings, it doesn't go into a great amount of detail, but it's normally the type of trigger warning that is normally the female main character, and it's our male main character that goes through it. So I appreciated that it was the guy instead of the girl that went through it, because you don't see many representations of the guy going through this particular type of trauma. I'm trying to be as vague as I possibly can without spoiling it, but like, I don't recommend this one. I don't think it's all that great. It just didn't do anything for me. I didn't really get the magic system. The relationship was just kind of mid. I just didn't really do anything for me, like, at all. The next two books I'm going to talk about are the final 2 books in the Prison Healer series, and that is The Gilded Cage and The Blood Traitor by Lynette Noni. I gave this one a 4.5 and I gave this one a 4.75. I absolutely fucking love this series. I am feral for this fucking series. It is so good. This shit is the reason why I got into YA fantasy in the first place. There are so many YA fantasies that just don't hit the mark lately for me. This is the exception. This brings me back to 2019 when I was reading and loving every single YA fantasy that I picked up. I think if you like Throne of Glass, then you might like this. Obviously, it's a trilogy, whereas Throne of Glass is an 8-book series, so the world and the story isn't quite as big. but the vibes feel very similar to me, and the storyline is kind of similar as well, because it's like in book 1 in particular, she is in a prison and she has to go through all these challenges, same as in the Throne of Glass series. But I absolutely fucking am obsessed with this series. I cannot recommend it enough. It's so good. The twists and turns that went throughout this series, I can't speak highly enough of it. I fucking love it. One tiny little tangent about this series, and it's not necessarily about the series in particular, but I was listening to the last book on Spotify, because Spotify Premium now has audiobooks on it, and I didn't know that the audiobook listening time was capped, and it cut me off 3 chapters from the end of the final book. And I was so annoyed. Now luckily, I do actually have the physical book, so I did just sit and read the last 3 chapters physically. But like, really? You're just gonna cut me off right at the end of the book? Just at least give me like X amount of audiobooks I can listen to a month. Don't be like cutting me off midway through, because that just hurts my feelings, man. Like, I got really upset about that. Because the audiobooks for this are so good as well. I loved it. I love this series. I don't know if I've said that already, but I think you should pick it up. It's really good. The next book I'm going to talk about is The Gargoyle from General Management by Kate Pryor. I gave this book a 3.5 and a 2 spice rating. This follows our main character Gwen, who's a succubus, but no one in her workplace knows she's a succubus because she's had bad reactions from people before, so she doesn't let anyone know. But when her new boss catches her literally with her hands down her trousers, he kind of offers to help her out. Due to the fact that she's had a lot of bad reactions from people before regarding the fact that she's a succubi, she has very low self-esteem and high anxiety, so she doesn't really understand why Vlad actually likes her, so she continually pushes him away. I really liked this story. I thought it was pretty decent. It wasn't anything groundbreaking. When my brain is doing all of the things all at once with the tiny little bit of ADHD that I have, monsters, aliens and demons are what I reach for when my brain just needs to be quietened down a little bit. It's just sweet, fun, good time. This one was alright. I much preferred book 2 in this series, but the unsolicited dick pic at the end of this was... I don't really know how to feel about it. I mean, it was a good illustration, but I was not expecting that. Be warned, if you are going to pick this series up. It wasn't in the first one. It was in this one. I had to send it in the group chat though, because it was funny. The next book I'm going to be talking about is Scarred by Emily McIntyre. This one I gave a 3.75 and a 3 spice rating. This is a very loose Lion King retelling where Scar is the one that gets the girl, and I loved seeing all of the little loose like nods to the Lion King. I thought that was really fun. And Tristan in this, our main character, our scarred prince, if this man was in real life 100% straight to jail. It says at the very start of this book, this is not morally grey, he is straight up villain. And that is 100% true. But if villain, why hot? I feel like that's a valid question. Because when he says, touch her and die, he really, really does mean it. And I love that she's kind of equally as fucked up as him, just kind of in a different way. Like they're both villains, but just different brand of villain. I really love that. I love when you've got 2 villains falling for each other, as opposed to the villain and the regular person, because I feel like the power dynamic of that one doesn't work, whereas this one, it was fabulous. I loved this. It was such a good time. I loved the storyline, I loved the romance, I love the spice. This was just really fun. I also feel like this was a very good balance between plot and romance, because I find that with the darker romances in particular, they're a lot more plot heavy than the contemporary ones. And this was a very nice balance between the two. I really appreciated that. Overall, I really did enjoy this. I thought this was a lot of fun. Another dark romance one that I read this month was Her Soul to Take by Holly LaRue. I gave this one a 3.75 as well, and I also gave it a 4 spice rating. There is a lot about this book that I really did enjoy. I love the plot in this. I like Leon. He's very morally grey and I really liked him. The smut was really good as well. But the one thing about this book that really brought it down for me was our main character, Ray. She was so fucking annoying that I just wanted to yeet her into the abyss, because she was every single dumb bitch in a horror movie ever, and it really just annoyed me. And I'm there like, you have zero common sense, you have zero self-preservation. That was like her entire thing. Her entire shtick was she has zero self-preservation and keeps getting herself into really stupid situations that she knows that she shouldn't be going into, but she does it anyway. And it just kind of drove me a little bit mad by the end of it, and it's just not like strong female character that I'm used to in books. She didn't really have a lot of autonomy, she was just a dumbass, and it just kind of pissed me off. But everything else about this book I really loved. So I think I'm going to enjoy the rest of the books in this series more, because the female main characters in the other books, which we meet in this one, I think they are a lot more badass and they've got a lot more autonomy and a lot more brains. So I think I am going to continue this series. It's just, I can't deal with this woman ever again. Just no. The next book I'm going to talk about is a very short little novella, and that's Riding the Headless Horseman by Molly Likurik, which I may have pronounced wrong. I'm very sorry. I gave this book a 4-star and a 3 spice rating. I don't really have a lot to say about this one because it's only 53 pages long, but this was like the best type of ridiculous to me. It was really fun and funny and sexy, and I just really had a good time reading this. I read this on a shift at work that was just completely dead, and I flew through it. And I think that this is a great Halloween read for just a silly, funny, good time. Another short little novella that I read was Scream for Us by Molly Doyle. I gave this one a 3.25 and a 4 spice rating. This was so fucking unhinged that I actually cannot comprehend what the fuck it is I read in this. This is a Why Choose romance, I think, because there are technically 3 guys in this. There's one that she refers to as Jason because he's in a Jason Voorhees mask, one that she refers to as Michael because he's in a Michael Myers mask, and one that she refers to as Ghost because he is in a ghost face mask. And this is like someone said, take the Touch Her and Die vibes, turn it all the way up to 11, and then not give any of the characters any actual names. What? Just what? These guys are literally going around killing the people that used to bully her, and she does not even know their fucking name. And I just can't quite get over that. Like, at least have some form of a connection other than a sexual connection before you go round committing murder. 'Cause I feel like that's just a little bit much. This was so fucking unhinged. And maybe this is just the fact that I don't read dark romance, but this was a lot for me. I think this was too much for me, if I'm perfectly honest. The other dark romances that I read, I enjoyed, but this one, this was too much. And no, it's a no from me. The next book I'm going to talk about is Payback's a Witch by Lena Harper. I gave this book a 3.5 and a 0 spice rating. I didn't really know anything about this book going into it other than it's a revenge story against this guy. And I was really hoping when I started reading this, because I didn't read the synopsis first, that this wasn't going to be a relationship between her and the guy that she's trying to get revenge on and like a second chance romance kind of thing. No, turns out that 2 of the girls that are trying to get revenge against this guy fall in love, and it's a female-female romance. And I loved that relationship. I thought that was really fun and sweet. This was just fine really, because it didn't really have all of that much romance compared to the plot. The plot kind of overshadowed the romance for me, and I didn't really care about the plot too much. I wanted more of the romance, but it was fine. It was what it was. It didn't really do anything for me. I was just really excited that it was a queer romance, but that's kind of all it had going for it for me. So it's just kind of mid. The next book I'm going to be talking about is Resisting Maxu by Victoria Avellin. I gave this book a 4.25 and a 3 spice rating. I really, really love this series. I don't know if you've been on my channel for any more than 0.4 seconds, but I love this author, I love this series, and this was absolutely no exception. This was a lot more plot. I feel like you definitely do have to read this series in order for it to make sense, because they are interconnected standalones. And this one was very insta-love, which I normally hate. However, if you call insta-love fated mates, I am hooked, I am in, and I absolutely am obsessed. Before Meg got abducted, she was in a really, really shitty marriage, and she is not looking for one of her mates. She just wants to have a good time, being away from her shitty ex-husband. But when Maxu sees her, he instantly knows that she is his mate, and he will do anything to show her how much that he absolutely adores the ground that she walks on. I love the plot in this as well because it rolls right into the next one, which I've not picked up yet because it's the newest one, and you know when you don't want a series to be over, so you don't read the last book in the series or the newest book in the series because you don't want to be fully caught up, because you want the series to go on forever and ever and ever. That's why I've not picked up the last one, and why I probably won't pick up the last one unless I'm having like a really exceptionally bad day. But tangent aside, I fucking love this book. I love this series. I will love this series forever and ever and ever. I'm probably going to end up rereading this series at some point. I adore her, I adore everything she writes. If you've been on my channel for any amount of time, you already know this. The next book I'm going to be talking about is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I gave this book a 3.75 and a 0 spice rating. It's kind of like half a spice rating really, because they don't actively do anything. It's more like talked about, but it's not actually on page, so I don't really feel like that deserves a spice rating at all, but it's like alluded to-ish. So that's what that was. Compared to her YA Once Upon a Con series, this, I feel like her writing is either evolved or it just works better in more of an adult setting. Because in the YA series that I read from this author, it comes across as really kind of pretentious a little bit, but in this one it just really works. And I love the humour in this as well. It's very dad joke pun type of humour, which is absolutely right up my alley. I really loved this, and the relationship between our main character Florence and Ben was really sweet. I really loved that. I kind of guessed how this was going to end because, let's be honest, there was only really two ways it could end, and it picked the one that I thought it was going to, so I was right in that regard. But I really did enjoy this. This was really sweet and really fun and just like a really wholesome, hopeful, good time, but like really sad as well. It has a lot of emotions in it. And the final book I'm going to be talking about is my favourite book of the month, and that was Butcher and Blackbird by Brynne Weaver. I gave this one a 4.75 and a 3 spice rating. I absolutely fucking adored this with my entire fucking ass. I listened to this on audio, and this was kind of my first foray into romance audiobooks, and Joe Arden narrates this, and oh my god. That man's voice is absolutely fucking decadent. The story in this was also so good. It was sweet, it was funny. Rowan was absolutely such a romantic. I loved him so much. And for a story about two serial killers, I don't think I've ever swooned that hard in my entire reading existence. And I am kind of concerned that I need therapy now, but this was so damn good. The story and the plot was great. The spice was immaculate. That might have just been Joe Arden's voice, I'm not gonna lie, but I loved this. If you've not picked this up yet and you've not seen all of the hype for it, I don't know what you're doing, but I strongly recommend that you absolutely check this out because it's so damn good. And that's it. That's all 16 books that I read in the month of October. So if you got this far into the video, then leave a jack-o'-lantern emoji in the comments down below. But for now, thank you so much for stopping by. It has been lovely having you here, and I hope to see you in another video coming very soon. Bye.